The Denver Broncos offense is banged up going into Sunday's matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They could be without two of their starters on the offensive line. We'll tell you why that makes us concerned and highlight players to watch and keys to victory here on today's episode of the show.
You are Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Broncos Country? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, where you get all the coverage, news, analysis, and more every single day, all year long, as it pertains to your favorite team, the Broncos. I'm Cody Roark, Broncos reporter for Mile High Sports. I cover the team in person daily on the beat. You can check out my written work and coverage as well over at milehighsports.com. Make sure you follow me on social media at Cody Roark NFL on Twitter or Threads. I'm on Threads a lot more these days, talking Broncos, but you know what? There's a lot going on with this team as Sunday's game against the Pittsburgh Steelers looms a little bit closer. Just want to say thanks once again to everyone who takes time out of the day, all the everydayers out there in Broncos country. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day every single day. If you're a brand new viewer or listener of the show, make sure you subscribe or follow so you never miss out on what's going on with your favorite team. You want objective, to the point Broncos coverage. You get that here every single day, all year long. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by our friends over there, LinkedIn Jobs. They help you find qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster and for free. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedon. NFL terms and conditions apply. And here's what you're going to get on today's episode of the show. We'll dive into keys to victory, players to watch. We'll talk about why the Broncos run game will be crucial if they hope to avoid an 0-2 start here on Sunday against the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll also highlight players to watch like Bo Nix. Can the rookie quarterback bounce back after his debut in week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks? Well, it's not an easy test against TJ Watt and that Pittsburgh Steelers defense. We'll also talk about why the Broncos pass rush will be important in this game against Justin Fields. But we're going to kick things off here on today's episode of the show, highlighting the injury report. There are some concerns here that the Broncos could be without two of their starters on the offensive line going into Sunday's game, which doesn't make it an easy test against that Steelers defense. We'll highlight that and also the wide receiver injuries there. And as I mentioned, you're also going to get a bonus episode here, I think on Saturday. Once we get the final injury report coming out of Denver, we'll give you the updated game statuses. But right now, as it stands here on Friday, the Broncos have Luke Wattenberg and Garrett Bowles, Josh Reynolds, and Devon Vele. These guys are questionable really going into Sunday's game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's talk about the offensive line first and really focus here on Garrett Bowles. Suffered an ankle injury and the Broncos lost to the Seahawks here in week 1. We didn't see him at practice on Wednesday. He was on the side field. And we all know Sean Payton came out and said, hey, he had an x-ray, had an MRI. Those came back clean. He's got a bruise. And understandably so. When you got a big guy who's got a bruise on the ankle, lateral movement might be a little hard. It might be a little painful. If he does end up playing, I imagine it's going to be a heavily taped up ankle there. And it's obviously going to be something worth monitoring because how long does it hold up? Is it something that has the chance to maybe linger, if not given time to rest and recover? We don't know these things yet. Obviously, I think, the team's not going to let that stuff out for competitive purposes, but it is worth monitoring here. Garrett Bowles in the final year of his contract here with the Denver Broncos this upcoming season. It's like, hey, he's also playing for a contract extension, whether it be with Denver or whether he's playing for a contract for another team here in the offseason. Him having this injury early on is a little bit frustrating. And obviously, I think we got to look at his replacement there. If he is unable to go in this game, Matt Parrott is set to get the start if that is in fact the case here. And Broncos offensive tackle Mike McGlinchey told us in the locker room, shared his thoughts on Matt Parrott, what he's seen from him since he's joined the roster. Here's what Mike had to say.
I think Matt's a great football player. I think he's certainly got a lot of talent. He's physically very gifted, and I think he's honed in a lot of technique that Zach and Austin have been teaching him since he got here. I think he's gelled well with us and what we try to do, and I expect nothing but great stuff from Matt moving forward if he is called upon on Sunday.
And if he is called upon on Sunday, he's going to have to step up because in the preseason, he didn't have a strong enough performance. He got bull rushed a few times. And when you look at Alex Highsmith, who will more than likely line up on the offensive left side, TJ Watt on the offensive right side. They may even move these guys around a little bit. It's a cause for concern. And certainly if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, if I see Garrett Bowles is not in there, I'm saying, okay, who's the weakest link in terms of the offensive line? Well, you got to look at number 79. You got to look at the left tackle there if he is the starter. You may see TJ Watt move around a little bit in this game. And also impacts the Broncos' plans. Like if they were to go jumbo package, Matt Parrott was the jumbo package offensive tackle last week against the Seahawks. So maybe that responsibility moves now to Alex Palczewski. I think regardless if Garrett Bowles plays or not, you need to go jumbo package because you need extra protection against a guy like TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, a defensive tackle, Patrick Queen, an inside linebacker. Like it is going to be a challenge here for Denver this week. They're facing a very tough defense, an elite defense for that matter here early on in the season. And when you don't have full strength on the offensive line, it is a little bit of a concern here. But then Luke Wattenberg, the Broncos center who won the job in training camp outright, if he is unable to go with an ankle injury, it'll be Alex Forsythe, who has that former connection there with Bo Nix. The two obviously played together at the University of Oregon, so that should certainly help. Maybe we'll see the Broncos under center a lot more this week versus the shotgun in which we saw them here in week one. That could be one of the ways to get the run game going, which we'll highlight later on in our keys to victory here on today's episode of the show. But that's what you can expect in terms of if those two guys can't go, that's what you'll see. But now let's get to the wide receiver position. Devon Vele with a rib injury, Josh Reynolds with an Achilles injury that's kind of been lingering a little bit throughout the entire offseason. He's been fighting through that. And I think a lot of things you can do is just get rest on it. Not sure if that means he's going to miss the game, but right now I think as we go into Friday, he is questionable, so to speak, for Sunday's game there. The idea here is, okay, what happens? Those are two receivers who played a pretty big role in what you were able to do last week against the Seahawks. I mean, Devon Vele, 8 catches on 8 targets. Josh Reynolds was the recipient of the biggest passing play downfield from Bo Nix on that back shoulder right before halftime. You don't have these two guys in there. Well, all of a sudden, your wide receiver depth is Cortland Sutton, who saw 12 targets last week. Marvin Mims, who's only saw 1 target and only played 12% of the offensive snaps. And then who do you have after that? Are you going to elevate Lil Jordan Humphrey once again from the practice squad? I don't know if that's going to be the case. Now, if there's an injury, of course, that's probably going to happen. I think this week specifically, what the Broncos need to do, you have Cortland Sutton, find a way to get Marvin involved this week, but you need to make sure that Troy Franklin this week, if in fact Devon Vele and or Josh Reynolds are not going to play, you need to activate Troy Franklin. Find a way to use him. Like, look, he's a rookie. He's going to learn on the fly, and you have to get him in the game. You need to have some dynamic presence of a speed threat out there. See what Troy Franklin can do when the game is live here with Bo Nix, if that is the case. And then I think another thing, and probably the safest bet, like if in fact that Vele and Reynolds were not able to play here this weekend, I do expect that David Sills would probably be elevated from the practice squad to the active roster on game day and would probably play quite a bit as well at wide receiver. But in my opinion, I think you can't go wrong with Sills, but I think you need to add some speed there. Troy Franklin gives you just that, and we'll see if he's able to do that. I think that's what Sean Payton should consider. But it's not about what I think that the team should consider. Ultimately, they're going to have a game plan to try to counteract that Pittsburgh Steelers defense. It will be a challenge, so to speak, and a lot of it is contingent upon health. Denver entered week one really healthy. Unfortunately, going into week two, a lot of question marks and a lot of key guys that are banged up in this game specifically. So we'll continue to monitor that. Obviously, Jonah Ellis, outside linebacker, knee injury continues to be limited. I think he'll more than likely have a better shot to play. I don't think it's as much of a concern right now as it is maybe with guys like Reynolds, Vele, Bowles, and Wattenberg in this situation here. But how concerned are you about this Broncos country going into week two on the injury side of things? We'll get into some of our players to watch, and we'll talk about why Bo Nix really will be the center focus of this week's game. But there's also some other players around him that can make his job easier. We'll highlight our players to watch here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over there at LinkedIn Jobs. And when you're hiring for your small business, you always want to make sure that you get the right qualified candidates for the job. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, because LinkedIn Jobs, they have the tools that will help you find the right professionals for your team faster, and best of all, for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but they may be open to the perfect role or opportunity if it arises. And in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. So make sure you add the right team member to your job here today, faster and for free, because LinkedIn, they also know that small businesses, they're wearing so many hats and they might not have the time nor the resources to hire. And over 2.5 million small businesses, they use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And look, right now, Broncos Country, FanDuel wants you to get involved, not only so you can get access to NFL Sunday Ticket, but they also have a profit boost that's ongoing. Right now, you can check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for FanDuel's double your winnings for all of Sunday, September 15th. Pre-game money line bets and more. Profit Boost will be live beginning on Thursday, September 12th. View your account page now to learn more about your boost, especially with the Broncos, 2.5-point home underdogs against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And here's what you can do. You can place a $5 bet with FanDuel now through September 22nd. On top of the profit boost, you can place that $5 bet and you can get a 3-week free trial to NFL Sunday Ticket, courtesy of YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game from the comfort of your home, whether you're close to your team or whether you're far away. You want to catch all the action, NFL Sunday Ticket has you covered. And all you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. All eyes are on Broncos rookie quarterback Bo Nix here in week 2 of the NFL season. Everyone wants to see, can he bounce back? There's a lot of signs that indicate it's going to be a tough challenge, but I'll tell you why I think Bo Nix is perfectly equipped to handle that here on today's episode of Locked On Broncos. Thanks once again, Broncos Country, for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen after the show, go check out the brand new Locked On NFL. You get 2 episodes, one in the morning and one in the evening. The morning episode features Tyler Rowland, the madman, as he rattles off his fiery takes around the National Football League. If you want more chill barbershop type of conversation, Tony Wiggins has you covered in the afternoon slot of Locked On NFL, free and available everywhere you get your podcasts or available on YouTube. Let's get into our players to watch series here as we focus on week 2 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And of course, look, it's going to be cliche. All eyes are on Bo Nix. And look, Broncos Country, I know the fan base is upset. They're frustrated about his debut in week 1. It wasn't the sharpest. It wasn't the prettiest, but it also wasn't the worst. You know, I think in the moment when you're watching the game, you're seeing the result, all the negativity compartmentalizes and it kind of stacks on top of itself. When you go back and you watch the film, there's just a lot of missed opportunities here for Denver and their offense specifically. So now in terms of why we're starting off here with Bo Nix being under the microscope as one of our players to watch, well, hey, it is a tough test for him this week when you face that Pittsburgh Steelers defense. I've already rattled off the names here today about TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, Patrick Queen, Minka Fitzpatrick, Joey Porter Jr. The Pittsburgh Steelers have elite level players on all levels of the field. The D-line, the pass rush, linebacker, defensive backfield, they have some elite level players there. And that certainly amplifies, I think, the challenge for Bo Nix and the Broncos. But where can Bo shine a little bit more this week? I alluded to it a little bit, and obviously this will be a key to the victory we talk about a little bit later in the show, but a lot of it has to do with running the football and trying to get the run game going here. And I think part of that this week for Denver, obviously it's a big blow that Audric Estime is going to be out for 4 weeks on injured reserve. So that means Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, maybe Blake Watson gets a little bit more run this week, or maybe the team promotes Tyler Beatty from the practice squad to the game day roster as an elevation for this game specifically against the Steelers. You have to be able to run the ball here. And I think so much of it, Denver struggled out of shotgun running the ball in week 1 against Seattle. Well, it's going to be a tougher test because of the defensive front that you are facing from Pittsburgh. So for me are we going to see Bo Nix under center a little bit more this week in terms of getting that run game going? I certainly think that can help, but I also think too, you can open up some stuff out of the play action passing game against the Steelers defense with Bo under center versus him just dropping back in shotgun. He can do some of these things out of shotgun. That's not a disputable point. It's just, okay, hey, how do you make it a little bit easier for Bo? And a lot of it is Denver needs to be efficient on first down. They need to be efficient here on second down. Far too often they would either gain 1 yard or they would lose a yard or 2 on first down or second down last week against Seattle. And then all of a sudden you're making it easy for the defense to play against you on third down because they're going to protect the sticks. They're going to keep everything in front of them. They're going to eliminate the explosives and then rally and tackle. Well, now it's a different animal this week because of the Steelers defense and their aggressive nature. They'll play the Broncos in some soft zone coverage this week, but they're also going to press. They're going to blitz a lot. They're going to send different disguised looks after Bo Nix and company, and Bo simply has to be able to respond. I think his nerves will be a little bit more settled this week. He met with us following Wednesday's practice, and he just said he's been looking forward to his home debut since he was drafted. I think having the hometown, having the home crowd on your side is going to help out a little bit. Broncos Country is going to be off the charts. I think it's very, very loud. I think the stadium's going to rattle a lot in the press box, especially when, it's third down. Denver's on the field there. I'm excited to see what Bo can maybe do here at home, but certainly it does come with some pressure. It does come with some expectations for him. I just think that I think the game plan around him this week, I think, will be simplified. It's going to be to run the football. It's not going to be placed all on Bo to go out there and try to press and make these plays. I think Bo, when asked to make plays, needs to do that, but take the pressure of him having to do a little bit of it all off of his shoulders early on. If you can get the run game going, I think particularly under center, I think will help Bo in this situation here. I think another key element that we are going to watch here is the Broncos pass rushers against this Steelers offense led by Justin Fields. Justin Fields had a pretty efficient day from a passing standpoint last week against the Falcons. I think 156 yards. I think he was 13 of 17, if I'm not mistaken. He had 14 carries for 57-something yards. So, of course, his mobility is a factor. And the last time the Broncos, Jonathon Cooper, these guys played Justin Fields, it was a member of the Chicago Bears, but he had 4 touchdowns against him, over 335 yards through the air. Didn't have as much yards on the ground, but Denver rallied from a 21-point deficit to win that game. You had the Nick Bonito strip sack, Jonathon Cooper scoop and score. Well, around Pittsburgh, I think, even though that they're young and they have questions on the offensive line with some of the injuries that they're also dealing with, it is a challenge. And that's something that Broncos outside linebacker Jonathon Cooper told us a little bit about Justin Fields. Here's what he had to say about really what Justin can do, and then we'll get into what he said about the emphasis this week against him and what the Broncos defense has to key in on.
First off, like you said, the Steelers are going to want to run that ball, so we definitely got to emphasize that. Like you said, like just continue to emphasize that all week, get better at that, practice hard at that, making sure we're focusing on the details when it comes to that, because that's the name of the game, and that's the name of our defense right now, stopping that run. And Justin Fields, I mean, he's a runner, you know what I'm saying, and he's really good with his legs. He wants to run that ball. He's fast. He's very efficient when he does. So that's even more emphasis on us this week.
You have to be able to maintain, contain, and obviously Geno Smith had a 34-yard touchdown run against Denver this past week. So if there's any hole that does open up in the interior of that defensive line, he will take it and he will run if your coverage is good enough. So you have to account for that. You have to make sure everything in terms of your gap responsibility is maintained, edge contain is there, because he can also get to the outside. It is a challenge. Here's what else Cooper had to say about Justin Fields.
First off, just watching him in the pocket and see how he reacts and moves and stuff, we played him before, so we know what it's like to tackle him. We know what it's like to get the ball away from him. We know what also he can do with his legs too. And if he gets going like he did in the first half last year, then he can also be a threat in the passing. So just making sure he's uncomfortable, making sure he doesn't have room or space to get active with his legs, just condensing him and hitting him all game.
I mean, I like the mindset there from Jonathon Cooper. And look, Justin is a terrific athlete, and Cooper understands the challenge ahead. I came away impressed with the Broncos pass rush against the Seahawks. It's a little different. You got a guy who's got a little bit of a faster gear than Geno Smith this week in comparison to what you got with Justin Fields. So it will be a challenge here for the Broncos defensively. So that's why I think Bo Nix and Baron Browning, Jonathon Cooper, even the interior defensive line of Zach Allen, JFM, and DJ Jones, they will be imperative this week if the Broncos are going to come away with a victory, especially on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side there, headlined by Bo Nix. Those are our players to watch, obviously the run game. But how are the Broncos going to find themselves in a position to win this game? Well, first off, it's no secret. We've talked about it. You got to find a way to run the ball. We'll emphasize how Denver can do that here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's episode, Locked On Broncos, is brought to you by our friends over there at Prize Picks. And Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports done right. America's #1 daily fantasy sports app that has over 5 million active users. And Prize Picks is the most exciting and easiest way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then you watch your winnings roll in. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, with Prize Picks, your picks are still live. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means that you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect, and you can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit, all inside the Prize Picks app. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. As we jump into the fourth quarter action on today's episode, Locked On Broncos, we'll highlight what Denver needs to do in order to leave Sunday 1-1 versus 0-2. Keys to victory are always an important element of the game. You're going to get that here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Want to say thanks once again to everyone in Broncos Country. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day every single day. You can always expect up-to-date, objective Broncos news, content, coverage, analysis, more here on the Locked On Broncos podcast. Make sure you turn yourself into an everydayer. We have an episode for you Monday through Friday, even on Sunday, sometimes on the weekends with bonus episodes. So you never miss out on what's going on, so you can have the most up-to-date information with your team every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Appreciate you so much, Broncos Country. Really, really do. Obviously, let's get into keys to victory. Really want to simplify this. There's going to be 3 keys here this week. And if you happen to catch our crossover with Chris Carter, host of the Locked On Steelers podcast, you got a little bit of an insight early on about what these keys to victory will be. And I think plain and simple, you have to find a way to run the football effectively. That's the first key here for the Broncos offense. Javonte Williams, I expect to have a little bit of a bigger emphasis in the game plan this week here for Broncos head coach Sean Payton. I'm curious to see how Jaleel McLaughlin will be used, and I'm very curious to see with Audric Estime now on the shelf for 4 weeks. Does that mean there's another guy that's going to step up, or are you going to go run heavy with Michael Burton and just you're going to run it with Javonte and Jaleel? Denver could do that, but I also think as you're trying to establish the identity of this run game, if you're starting to try to get to this committee approach and you're mixing in different backs, is that going to hurt the process here for how the offense and the identity in and of itself will start to develop as Bo Nix is starting to get more comfortable, as he's trying to get going himself after a rough performance here in week 1 of the season? The run game was equally just as bad in terms of production as Bo Nix's debut. And so if you don't have either of those, the offense, it's going to be climbing uphill all season long. You have to find a way to avoid that. So I think getting the run game going is going to be pivotal here. And look, that's going to be a tough test against the Steelers defense, who I thought did a terrific job against Bijan Robinson and the Atlanta Falcons. Though I'd say maybe the argument here that we're looking at is the Falcons offense with Kirk Cousins as their quarterback here. It was their first time working together. Bijan is obviously a very, very talented player, but I think that they lost some opportunities. They lost a couple of drives because of Kirk not being able to be as effective. I think him still coming off the Achilles injury definitely factored into that. So maybe that gets better as time goes on. But TJ Watt had this terrific tackle in the backfield against Bijan Robinson that really started to jumpstart his momentum, I think, to say, okay, hey, he's the odds-on favorite now for Defensive Player of the Year after 1 week of play. Certainly, he's the type of guy who got that recognition there. So find a way to run the ball. I think put Bo Nix under center on a few plays and try to just get downhill. You know that Patrick Queen, you know that Cam Hayward, those guys are going to try to plug and stuff your interior offensive line. And with injuries to Garrett Bowles, with Luke Wattenberg, it certainly makes things a little bit more questionable in terms of how do you get the run game going if you don't have these 2 guys starting? Well, also, how do you get the run game going if both of these guys start for the Broncos and do play through their injuries on Sunday? That is the biggest key here, I think, for Denver this week. I'm curious to see how Sean Payton approaches it. And look, if you want to take pressure off of Bo Nix to have to go out there and avoid pressing, you need to be able to run the ball effectively. No more 1 or 2 yard gains. Like Denver needs to rattle off some 4 or 5 yard runs. Or more importantly, if you find yourself in 2nd and short or even, 3rd and short, you have to find a way to convert. That's where I'm a little worried, because we're anticipating Audric Estime to have that type of role. Can Blake Watson do that? Can Tyler Beatty do that? Or is that going to be placed specifically on the shoulders of Javonte Williams and the legs of Jaleel McLaughlin in terms of his speed, the smash and dash combination? Certainly a possibility. Key number 2 to victory. Defensively, it's all about eliminating the explosive plays. The Broncos gave up 3 explosive plays last week that led to touchdowns against the Seattle Seahawks. You take away one of those, Denver wins that game potentially here. And look, I think we talked about the mobility factor of Justin Fields. You can't allow him to scramble and get big plays with his legs the way that Geno Smith did. That was one, right? You had a running back wheel out of the backfield for a touchdown. Well, Najee Harris is going to be a little bit of a bruiser, but Jalen Warren is going to be the change of pace guy who can run it effectively between the tackles with explosive plays and also be a pass catcher out of the backfield. Cordarrelle Patterson is also another guy that could get thrown into the mix. So make sure your communication pre-snap is there. You don't want to have a miscommunication where all of a sudden a running back's running free up the sideline. You're wait, who's covering that guy? That happened last week. You can't have that type of play happen there again. And then I think, maybe try to anticipate that the Steelers here in this week's game are going to take a page out of the Seahawks book, go up tempo, go a little bit no huddle. Arthur Smith has that in his arsenal. And certainly the Broncos got gashed a little bit when they started to go a little bit up tempo. So how can Denver find a way to anticipate, okay, if they go up tempo, here's how we adjust quickly? Because when you're going the no huddle, you can't really substitute in that situation. Like, you have to stay in the package that you're in. The good news about that, they can't either, but they have an idea in their head as to what play they're going to run on that second play or that third play. They may even have a script, before they even go on the field saying, hey, on this drive, we're going to go up tempo. Here's our first play. Here's our second play. Here's our third play. And then we'll get it in quickly from the sideline after that. They can set that up. And obviously Denver's going to have to halt that momentum a little bit, get a stop on that first play or that second play. And then maybe they stop going with the up-tempo approach. I expect that from the Steelers here. And it also starts with, too, is just being able to key against the run and stop the run, eliminating the explosives. We talked about that. Here's what Broncos cornerback Riley Moss said as well to us this week about eliminating explosives.
Yeah, I think it's, the importance of not giving up big plays is huge this week. We got to make them earn it. And like you said, you force them to a field goal. That's good ball. So I think, overall, I think it's just making them work down the field and trying to stop the run.
And look, if you can hold the Steelers to field goals, that's great, right? The under for this game set at 36.5, according to our friends over there at FanDuel Sportsbook. They don't anticipate a high-scoring affair. So if Denver's defense can buckle down, look, they're drastically improved in comparison to last year. The explosives were the defining factor against the Seahawks. Eliminate that this week, and I feel like you have a better chance to make some plays and have some opportunities. And I just think overall you have to play better on the sticks, play better on first down, play better on second down, and try to find a way to protect against TJ Watt, whether that's your jumbo package. You need to block better at the tight end position, the offensive tackle position, the extra offensive tackle in certain situations to TJ Watt's side, but you can't discount that Alex Highsmith can't come off the other edge and make things hard for you. It is a true challenge here for Bo Nix and this Broncos offense this week. The defense, there are going to be some tough challenges with George Pickens. You have Van Jefferson, Roman Wilson, the rookie, Calvin Austin, Pat Freiermuth, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. There are going to be some challenges presented here by the Steelers offense against Denver's defense. Who's going to rise to the occasion? The Steelers haven't won in Denver since 2009. Can Denver extend that streak, or will Mike Tomlin find a way to snap it? We'll find out on Sunday here. But Broncos Country, that'll wrap up today's episode of the show. Appreciate you so much for tuning in, rocking with us here on Locked On Broncos on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. If you're a brand new viewer or listener of the show, make sure you turn yourself into a subscriber. From that point, turn yourself into an everydayer so you never miss out on what's going on with the Denver Broncos. Like I said, I'm at every Broncos practice throughout the week. I'm in press availability. I go to the games. If you want to know what's going on, there's no hot takes here. There's no clickbait. We deliver all that objective coverage here. Locked On Broncos. We'll see you for a bonus episode of the show once we get the team's final injury report and game statuses. You can expect that as well on Saturday for your listening and viewing pleasure here on the Locked On Broncos podcast. And then we'll see you on Sunday for the post-game report following the Broncos game against the Steelers. We'll see you then.